Right, so this video is kind of a comical one. I've put this off because this is a bit of an embarrassing dream. But I wanted to, after reading it through, to be honest, I kind of read it through and I thought, no, that's definitely worth sharing. So I'm going to share it. Okay, so I don't know what I'm going to call this just now, but here we go. All right, so I had a short dream where I was on a bus. Okay, so in the bus is moving, I'm walking down the bus and I'm going to sit myself down, probably about halfway down, just slightly beyond halfway down this bus. And as I was going down, I was actually speaking, I think I'd sat down at this point, or people were getting their seats, and I was speaking to these couple of guys, and they were complimenting me on what I was wearing, which is a random thing. We don't do that in the UK at all. But they were complimenting me on what I was wearing. I was just all smartly dressed, so I was wearing like a suit, tie, all of that sort of stuff, looking very smart. Office wear. So I used to wear stuff like that, full suit and things to work, but haven't done for years now. But that was the case anyway. So I sat myself down, and then as I'm sitting there, guess what happens? The worst thing you can think of, pretty much. I ended up pooing myself, okay? And it was not the solid kind, let's put it that way, okay? So hopefully I'm not being too graphic there, but obviously I knew it had happened, and it was just ultra embarrassing. And it's one of those things, as I said, I've dreamt about it before when I was a kid, and things like that. I have had dreams about that before, but this actually had a message this time, okay? So as I said, that happened. And so out of pure embarrassment, I just slid down the seat. I kind of slid down. Like you've got a little footwell sort of bit where people just put their feet when they sit down. I kind of slid down there. I just wanted to disappear. I just wanted to absolutely disappear. And as I said, I slid down just in pure panic. And I was just thinking, what can I do? Literally, what can I do? I'm going to work. I'm not coming back from work. I'm actually going to work. I'm pretty sure that was the case. What am I going to do? Anyway, after a relatively short period of time, just after this happens, then those guys I was talking to, who were actually sitting behind me, pretty loudly sort of went, "Oh, what is that awful smell?" Like really loud. And then there was a little bit more time went, but not that much. And obviously if you think about this, I'm just squirming, like in this footwell, just hiding, thinking, "Oh, please just let me get off. I just got to get off." Something like that. It was awful. The embarrassment was just unbelievable. Again, as you would imagine. And then there was two girls in front of me, two youngish sort of girls, so early 20s, maybe late teens or something like that. And they, I heard them say more or less the same thing. Same sort of thing in front of me. Noticed. They were very aware of it. What they were doing, if you imagine you've got two people sat in front of you, they're kind of looking over the back of their chair, their seats that they're on, and looking down at me. And I'm just like, "Oh, this is horrendous. This is awful." And then I woke up, and that was the end of the dream. Okay, very random dream. What are you going to make of it? Go on. If I gave you some time right now, what would you make of that? I would love to know. I'll tell you what the actual dream was about, because it got confirmed. Otherwise I wouldn't have obviously even bothered mentioning it. So my thoughts were, and this was obviously just after it happened, right? So my thoughts were, well, what was it? I mean, to be fair, the confirmation of it was very, very quick actually, so I didn't really have to ponder too much about the meaning. And I think it even may have been the case that I didn't write it down at all, and then the meaning came, and I thought, okay, all right, so it's not just a random dream then, because it was quite a short dream. And so later that same day, I come across a Christian video that I'm watching, and I watch Christian videos. I haven't been as much recently. I've been watching a mixture of things. I mentioned that previously. I've been watching some military stuff and a bit of a mixture of stuff. But normally, I mean, it's easily 8 hours or close to 8 hours of Christian content I would watch, on an average day. Maybe a little bit less than that actually. That does sound a bit excessive. Yeah, maybe a little bit less, but I mean, not by much. I mean, it probably is pretty close to that kind of figure. So lots and lots of Christian videos. Now, one of the videos in that day, I seem to remember I was washing up or something. Within 1 minute of this video starting, so if you imagine, your attention is generally, your ears are pricked up a little bit, when you start up a video. But if it's like an hour long or 45 minutes long, wherever it may be, you might lose concentration while you're doing other bits and pieces at the same time. Because I'm not sitting there statically watching videos. I don't do it for a living, so I'm doing it while listening at stuff. While doing stuff, of course. So later that day, I happened to come across this Christian video. As I said, I watched them all day long anyway. And within the first minute of this new video, this guy was talking he was specifically talking about the final generation. So us, our generation, the final generation, those who would be around for when Jesus returns. Okay. And there was one specific word he said. So the word he said was incontinent. Okay, now I used to put out incontinent pads. I used to work in a kind of, what would you call it? Like a shop that did pharmacy sort of stuff. It's a mixture of things. They do sandwiches and drinks. They do perfumes. They do loads of stuff. And in my section, I was in more the pharmacy sort of area. So we putting out pills, vitamin tablets, all that kind of stuff. And one of the sections that was next to mine was actually like the children's section. It was like nappies and stuff like that, but they had adult incontinent pads. So they were obviously, for people who generally were a bit older and are obviously struggling when it comes to, self-control, let's say, when it comes to, bodily functions. Okay. And so when I heard incontinent, it was immediate. I was like, that's exactly what the dream was about. It was about being incontinent. I couldn't hold, I didn't have, whatever was the problem with me, I obviously I couldn't hold myself together. And so that's what it was. Now, I investigated it because, I think when I first looked it up, I couldn't find it easily, but I knew I read it. And it's only, of all the translations that are out there, only the King James Version says that. I've got, my first Bible I ever read was a King James Version. Okay, so I've obviously remembered it from that. But it's incontinent. Do you know how many times that comes up in the Bible? It's Strong's G193. It comes up one time in the entire Bible. Once. So I was like, okay, what are the chances of that coming up and me associating it 100% incontinence with being unable to again control yourself? And the Strong's for it is basically describes being powerless, without self-control, and yeah, that's sort of what it is, isn't it? If you go to the toilet, and you weren't planning to, well, you're without self-control. So they use it in the King James Version as incontinent. Okay, I'll move on. I'll give you the passage as well. Okay, so this is only in the King James Version alone for 2 Timothy 3 verse 3. That's it. Okay, so it says, and it's talking about the final generation, obviously, which is what this sermon was about that I was watching. It says, and it's describing the final generation. So they are, and the quote, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, and despisers of those that are good. Okay, so it's talking about that's our generation, isn't it? Without natural affection, I guess sort of backstabbing and stuff like that. Truce breakers, so we lie and stuff like that all the time. False accusers, there's plenty of that online. And without self-control, stacks of that. Fierce and despisers of those that are good. Yeah, that sounds about right to me. So, into the thoughts. Yeah, so powerless, self-control, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, my ears, as I said, my ears pricked up. And again, you may not have had this yet, but sometimes when I'm watching something and something comes up like that, it is like your ears prick up. It's like, yes, that's it. And you just know, you absolutely know that's what that was. Perfect. And then it's like, you've got my attention, I'm listening. Okay, so now I'm gonna explain why that came up in a dream. Okay, so the backstory to this. Okay, so the night before this dream happened, or maybe that same night, I'm not sure. It says Now the backstory is that the night before this. Okay, all right. So it was the previous day. It sounds like previous night. I'm waking up from the next night, morning, I guess, something like that. That's not overly clear, to be honest, but I suppose it doesn't really matter, does it? If it's within a day, you know, if it's within 48 hours for sure. Anyway, so when I was saved, as I've mentioned this many times, sort of March 2023, not really all that long afterwards. Certainly before that year was out. I think it was around maybe sort of October sort of time, something like that. Again, I may have mentioned the date before, but it was around that sort of mark. I started to do Bible studies. I used to do that with my mum, her friend, and husband. And again, I have mentioned certainly that we only did it for a little while. You know, I kind of run out of material because I was doing really long sessions, really. So the first one we did was something like 7 or 8 o'clock at night until, well, it was like 7 o'clock until like 12 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, something ridiculous. I can talk, as you know, if you've watched any of these videos. So I'm just enthusiastic. I'm you know, a lot of the time I'm seeing things and I'm retaining information, and I want to share it, you know, because of other people who aren't aware of it. So my first sort of ones were like Adam and Eve, and you know, like creation stuff, Genesis stuff, you know, all the kind of the Exodus, loads and loads of stuff I was doing, giants. I'm trying to think. I did quite a few, or at least put together quite a few, but I'm not sure how many of them I actually delivered. But I was like, oh, I've got some material, you know, we'll do it for the Bible study. A lot of it broke down. It just didn't happen because we were waiting for certain people to be available, and they weren't available very frequently. So it's like, oh, we'll do it next time. And the next time that we would have been doing it, it'd be, oh, well, we'll do it next time. Next time it was coming up, right, well, we'll do it next time. You know, they're not ready. So, and it just got to that point of so many no's that I just kind of left it, you know. And I thought, well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But we'll just put it on hold, I guess, for now. And I did actually mention that in one of probably about my 4th video, which is when I met Jesus. So I met Jesus for real, Jesus, which I can say now confidently. That was the day after, the night of my first Bible study I ever did, and it was like again, definitely worth watching. It was basically like a confirmation of, you know, you've got to a certain point. Well, no, actually, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know the true message of what Jesus spoke to me, because he spoke to me in Aramaic, so I couldn't understand what he said. So I'm sure there's a reason for that, but my spirit well and truly received that, and I just collapsed. So something was said. I still to this day don't know what that is, but it was very what's the word? What a moment that was. So again, very interesting. So obviously look into that one. So that was, I was just giving you a backstory to the Bible study. So what actually happened here relating to this dream was as I said, the night before that, I'd gone to a Bible study, which was arranged by the church, and it was the first one I've ever been to. You know, I can't remember how it came up really, but yeah, it was the first one that we arranged. And I remember we were talking about beginning of Revelation, the churches and stuff like that. But I came into it, and I know I did. I came into it almost like wanting to show off. Not wanting to show off, but what's the best way to say it? I was confident in my own knowledge. Okay, so coming in, I felt like I had a lot that I could, and I do believe that. You know, I felt like I had a lot that I could contribute towards the conversations that were happening and stuff like that. So I probably came across as not argumentative, but because I didn't argue, I was just saying, oh, I've got a different view. I mean, the way I see it is this, you know, and the other person was like, oh, well, that's not how I see it. And I was like, okay, all right, well, differing opinions, fair enough. But I was kind of quite shocked to hear this different opinion that is nothing like I've really heard before. And so I suppose I was kind of trying to push back a bit. And pretty much everything that was said, I had an opinion on. You know, I had something I wanted to contribute to the group. I didn't really feel like too much. we kind of gelled that well as a group, and it didn't feel like the chemistry was right. So it would have been absolutely fine for somebody else, but it just didn't seem to work for me. And there was other problems where we just couldn't stay in that group anyway. But again, I won't go into all of that. And so I actually sorry, what am I trying to say? The Bible session was over. We went home, but I did have a conviction of, I don't think I really came across how I would have liked to have come across, and I didn't really act in the way that I'd like to act. So I had a kind of quite a conviction really, and I prayed on it. Like as soon as I got home, I'm pretty sure I did. And I was sort of saying, I felt like I literally, this is what I said. I wrote this down. So I prayed and I asked for forgiveness for my self-righteousness. I said, I was being prideful, and my views, because of my views were being challenged, and I was pushing back, and I was pridefully pushing back. Where you're kind of almost like clinging to a scripture, and your meaning is the right meaning. And it was passion really, but yeah, I mean it was passionate, but I felt like I didn't really. Yeah, I felt like I was being a bit prideful, and I didn't really like that sort of side of myself. And I think the problem was really, if I think back to it, is that the Bible group that I set up, so I was the one who was running it. So I kind of had my leading, and this is where I think this is where I think that is. And if I think about it really, I was more talking at them rather than actually waiting for a response in their thoughts. So it wasn't really a good Bible group from that point of view. But again, at the same time, I suppose they were, it was like, I'd read so much further on, you see, and I was listening, as I said, I was listening to Christian content all the time. So I was getting loads of information, it was just flooding in. And so, as I said, I just wanted to share it. So again, as I said, I think it's that set me up for failure, in a way, in that scenario. But, it is what it is. And so when I heard incontinent and I looked into the meaning of it, it's somebody who doesn't have self-control. It's like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that is me. In that environment, I certainly lacked self-control, and that's specifically what I prayed on. So it was like incontinent, yes, I mean, obviously, if you go back to what that really means, self-control, then yeah, 100%, I get it, I acknowledge it, and I'll change, I'll do things better next time. So that was basically the outcome of that one, really. There's not really much I can say more than that, to be honest. It's, as I said, I did go into some other bits and pieces and what it was specifically about that we were kind of talking about, but it's not relevant. It's really not relevant. That was the main part, okay? So what's the lesson? Don't be wedded to your ideas. Be open for constructive criticism and learning, because you don't know it all. And I don't profess to know it all, but, see there? See that little slip? But I don't know it all, full stop. Okay, so that's how it should be. And as I said, I've learned from that experience, and I do try to have self-control. I do struggle. I genuinely do struggle. My daughter's looking to get baptized, and we were in a meeting, and it was all about her, obviously, but I just kept on wanting to say stuff. I kept on wanting to get in and say things. I get frustrated at myself for doing that sort of stuff. I know I'm like that. It's because of the way my brain works, to be honest. I mean, I've just got such a poor memory that if it's on my mind, I have to say it. I have to get it out, because otherwise that thought, that will just wander off and I won't get it back. Okay, so that's why I sometimes come across as talking over people. It's really because I know if I don't get it out there, it's never going to get out there, and I'm just going to go all quiet, and then, it could have been something that really needed to be said, I just didn't say it. So, what can you do sometimes? So again, as I said, I'm trying to learn from it, but that was a lesson. So that was a lesson wrapped up in a dream, then, and obviously confirmed it confirmed my prayer. I mean, my prayer was saying, look, I acknowledge the fact I lack self-control, and then there we go, confirmed. Okay, so yeah, interesting the way people work. I mean, again, that's not how I would define it. As I said, for me, incontinent means literally just means, you know, that you can't, you go to the toilet without wanting to go to the toilet. I've never heard it used in that way of self-control before, or being powerless. I've never heard it that way before. I've only ever associated it with that. So the fact that the dream showed me that, then it confirmed obviously what I prayed about. I was just like, wow, okay, impressive stuff. But that's God, isn't it? You know, impressive stuff, impressive. Yeah, so that's it. So interesting insight into my bizarre dream life, and how that comes up. That some weird stuff comes up sometimes. There's not a great deal, to be honest, that I've withheld. I mean, I have gone through some quite a lot of varied stuff. I mean, there's been, just so you know, I mean, there's sort of some things I haven't put in. I had something to do with like a Joseph's coat. It was like this guy's coat had mixed furs and stuff on, but it was just that. So well, I can't make that into a dream. I had something where I was in a warehouse and somebody was trying to like cut the back of my leg and bleed me out in this post-apocalyptic war thing. Again, couldn't really make a video out of that. Had stuff to do with COVID, to do with something coming and it being the same sort of thing again. Couldn't really make a dream out of that. I've had Civil War ones. There's lots of bits and pieces. Some sort of minor UFO one that I had, but sometimes I just look at them, I read them, and I just think, oh, don't think I can really make anything out of that, and I don't really know that there's a big message in there. So not every single dream I write down is necessarily something where there's a message there to be delivered. So I'm obviously kind of reading it and thinking, nah, we'll leave that one. But I've done that a few times, and then I've come back a second time and then gone, actually, there's a lesson there. So I'm going over them sometimes a couple of times just to see if there's something there, and if there's not, as I said, I'll pretty much bin it and not bother. Okay, so as I said, hopefully this had some lessons in it. Got a teeny amount of scripture in there to self-control, second Timothy. I'll put that, obviously, every single dream that I have been submitting more recently, I've been citing the scripture. So a lot of the videos you would see, if you look in the description, you may not find anything at all other than the hashtags. But more recently, if I cite a scripture, even if I just say, oh, it's that one about the fig tree, and I don't know the scripture, because a lot of the time everything's on the fly, you know, as to thoughts that come in, and I just mention them, you know. If I remember them, then I'll write the scripture in there so you can go find it yourself, okay? But a lot of the early ones I haven't done that, and yeah, I could rewatch over like 50 videos, but a lot of the time I'm saying look it up, Google it. So you're going to find it anyway. But as I said, I'm just trying to be a bit more helpful with the later videos by literally putting the scriptures in there for you. Okay, right, that's it. I've managed to drag that out, haven't I? I will get another one sorted soon. Okay, bye.